Welcome to Priceless Takes.
And we are live from the Gold Coast, Australia. Welcome back, everyone, to Priceless Takes episode 60, the Big 60. And what better way to have this episode with the NBA Finals at our doorstep? Joining me today, full panel for the NBA Finals preview, Mr. Tyson McMullen, Oscar Hardcastle, and Reuben Lynn. How are we today, boys?
Very well, thank you.
Listen,
It's
it's
a
good
cold
to
morning.
It is a cold morning.
It is.
For our
Yes.
international viewers, it's
cold,
winter
isn't it?
in Australia right now.
It's cold. It's cold.
It is
really
definitely not winter in most of the other places around the world. It is very cold this morning. We are going to get into our NBA Finals predictions. I gather those of you watching already know who Reuben's picking based on the clothes that he's wearing, but we will get through all of our NBA Finals predictions. What a series this is going to be, guys. Not only is it a good series from a basketball perspective, but from the storylines as well. And if there's one thing we know about the NBA, it's that storylines matter. The Boston Celtics take on the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA Finals. Celtics, heavy favorites, minus 225, $1.40 for our Australian viewers. And the Mavs are at plus 180, $2.75 to win the chip. The Celtics 2-0 against Dallas in the regular season. Just a few stats to rattle off. Tatum averaged 35 points per game on 50, 40, 85 shooting. Jaylen Brown averaged 30. Doncic averaged a 35-point triple-double. And Kyrie was only 21 points per game in their two matchups this season. Now, in the playoffs, those numbers have dipped quite a bit, especially on the Celtics side. Tatum averaging 26, Brown 25. Doncic's numbers have dipped too, 29, 10, and 9. Kyrie has averaged 23 throughout these playoffs. Now, the storyline, guys, and I know a lot of people in the NBA world, this is a big factor for their picks, as I'm interested to hear, particularly from the two picking the Celtics, if it's a big factor for you too. Kristaps Porzingis, who has been out for the last two playoff series, is expected to return for game one of this series. Now, one more interesting thing to note, guys, before I throw it to Reuben to explain why Dallas is going to win the championship. This is the first time that two teams have faced in the NBA Finals where one team has faced 0 50-win teams in the playoffs, and the other team has only faced 50-win teams in the playoffs. Now, without further ado, Reuben, who is going to win this series, and in how many games, and what's your reasoning behind it?
I'm going to keep it very quick and simple. I have obviously the Mavericks in 6 games. You have the two best closers in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, but I think the biggest factor is the three-point shooting. I tried to allude to this last episode because the Celtics in the regular season are 39% from 3, or 38.8%. They shot 34.9% against the Pacers. They weren't shooting it well, but they still made more, and that's what got them over the line. I was trying to allude to the point that threes are worth more than twos, and the biggest X factor for the Mavericks will be PJ Washington and Derek Jones Jr., how well they shoot from 3. If they can make a lot of threes and shoot more and at a more efficient rate than Boston, Dallas will get over the line.
Yeah, I think that the 3-point battle is probably going to be the biggest thing. I've got the Celtics in 6. The thing is, the Mavericks has gotten to this point by opening up the 3-point and letting the other people shoot, and letting those isolation scorers like Shai Gilgeous and Anthony Edwards, shoot and open up that 3-point and clog the paint. That's what they've been doing. They cannot do that against this Celtics team because Porzingis is back. They've got that good pick and pop option now, and they've been lights out from 3. You've got Jaylen Brown, who's been dominant on the 3-point line. You've got Jason Tatum, who's always been a good 3-point shooter. You've Derek White. You've got all these people that can shoot these threes, and they haven't been limiting them. And they're just going to have to. They're going to have to change their whole defense. They're going to have to change their whole defensive scheme in this game, and that's why I think the Celtics are going to win in 6.
I have to agree with Oscar on both parts. I do have Celtics in 6, but as well as a 3-point. 3-point being such a significant factor in this series. I do think with obviously Al Horford, but with Porzingis back as well, it's just their ability to space out the floor completely. Is going to be a big factor, a big test to the Mavs defense. And we've seen how well spacing the floor is against like other good teams. We've seen Timberwolves versus Nuggets when Gobert was out. You know, you got Cat and Nels Reed both spacing the floor. See how significant that is. I do think Celtics have the upper hand on them, and just their 3-point ability as well as defense will be interesting to see against the two stars. So yeah, the Celtics
I
in
think
6.
also, sorry, Luca, one thing that I didn't allude to is that if they do change it up and they do defend that 5 out that the Celtics are so used to running, the way that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum can just rip up defenses and go to the hole when they are limited on the 3-point side of things is unbelievable as well. So I think that the Mavericks are going to really struggle to defend these 3-level scorers that the Celtics have.
Well, listen, my biggest question for you guys, Oscar or Tyson, but you can both answer it, only one of you, is the Celtics have been so good without Porzingis since he's gone down. Do you think that he'll just integrate into the lineup seamlessly, or how do you picture his return after they played so well without him?
I think he's going to go straight into the starting lineup. I think a guy like that, first of all, you can't get him off the bench. And in the regular season, we've seen him. At times, he's been the second best player on a stacked Celtics team. At times in the regular season, I know it's the playoffs now, and he's been injured for quite a bit, but at times he's been that second best player when either Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown aren't firing. He's been the second best player on the best team in the league. So, wins wise. So I think you can't fiddle around. You can't get him on the bench. And even if he doesn't at the start, quite integrate well, you have to start him. And even if you restrict his minutes, maybe if he's not playing well, but I think you just have to put him in the starting lineup to see what he does. He's been on the team for the whole year. He knows how to play with these guys. He's done it before. I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, no, I agree as well.
Yeah, go Tyson.
No, I was just gonna say we've seen him in the team in the regular season, but also just like Al Horford, who's taking his spot when he's out, is pretty much playing the exact same role. Just a big pick and pop 3, stretch the floor. But Porzingis
It's a lot shorter.
Just obviously a lot shorter, but just Porzingis is a more refined, sharp play model of that type. So yeah, I think it should be pretty seamless. It'll be interesting to see how he operates. Maybe not fully 100%, but still, I think he's should be able to get it done.
Shouldn't be 100% though. He's had a few days off. I'm sure. I feel like he could have came back a couple, the last games of the
Probably
last
could,
series.
but,
So
yeah.
I think you should be all right. Hopefully.
Yeah, look, I think Porzingis presents a different type of problem for Dallas they haven't had to face this postseason. But when you look at the teams Dallas have played, I think they've proven the ability to make the necessary adjustments to beat their opponents. And I think that's something that I got to give credit to, because Dallas's defense has improved so much in the last sort of 4 months of the season. They're by far the better rim protecting team. And I know what you're saying, Oscar, but at the end of the day, it's Boston if they can't shoot threes, because we know they live and die by the threes, they have 47% of their shots are taken beyond the 3-point line. If they can't hit from 3, that's a problem I think presents them, because I think Dallas are a very, very good rim protecting team. But I think this matchup comes down to the stars. And that's ultimately why I've made my pick the way that I have. And I think this is a hard series to talk about when you look at it from a statistical point of view. And I guess it's similar to what I said in the rundown, is the stats aren't easy to compare, because when you look at the teams they've faced, and I think Dallas presents a new type of challenge to Boston. Now, Boston are 9-0 in these playoffs when they've shot 14 plus threes. But I see a lot of scenarios where Boston can shoot 14 plus threes in these finals, and Dallas can still beat them. So there's a lot of things statistically which I find it hard to talk about. And clutch time is one of my biggest things. Now, Boston hadn't played a single clutch time game until the Pacers series. Now, they won all 4 of them. They won all 4 clutch time games against the Pacers. Dallas are 6-3 in clutch time this season. In the regular season, Dallas were 20-8 in clutch time. Boston were 18-11. So pretty similar numbers, but I want to talk about the individual matchups. The biggest reason I have made my pick and I guess it's similar to what Reuben sort of alluded to, is I just think that the Mavericks have the bigger players who will shine in the bigger moments. And there's something about Boston that I don't I trust them more than I trusted them before the Eastern Conference Final Series. Don't get me wrong. But I think when you look at the playmaking that Doncic and Kyrie Irving present, I don't think Boston is going to be able to slow them down really at all. I think they're too talented, they're too skilled to be slowed down, and they're not afraid of the moment. Neither Doncic or Kyrie Irving. We've seen in the past, Boston, the moment's gotten too big for them. I'm taking the Mavericks in 6 games, like Reuben, and I just think at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, one team has the better stars and the other team doesn't. And I think that the Dallas role players, and I said this when I picked them in the Minnesota series, the Dallas role players can step up, guys. And I think they can play to a draw with the Boston role players. And I think it's going to come down to Tatum and Brown versus Kyrie and Doncic. That's why I'm taking the Mavericks in 6. I want to swing it back to you, Oscar. With this star matchup, I'm under the assumption you're assuming that Brown and Tatum are going to play better than Doncic and Irving. Tell me if that's wrong, but if so, why?
Well,
what's the star matchup for you?
I think as a collective, I think both matchups are going to play well. I think JB and Jason Tatum will play better. I think limiting Luka is going to be a struggle, obviously, but we've seen that you can limit someone like Kyrie Irving. We haven't seen someone, I know you can't talk about, because the Celtics have easier matchups, yeah, whatever. We haven't really seen Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum really be limited this playoffs, and I understand that they can be, but I'm just saying we have seen Kyrie struggle at times. We have seen Luka struggle, even though I don't think he's going to struggle. I think he's going to get his stats and get his numbers. I don't think it's going to be about the star matchup. I think it's going to be about everybody else, but I think we're going to talk about that later. But I think the stars are all going to play well, but I think Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have that edge. You know, they've been in a finals together and they've lost it, which, you know, we say you have to lose a big one to win one, and I think those two are going to have a slight edge, I think.
Well, yeah, Oscar, I want you to keep going. So you don't think it's the stars. Talk more about the role players and why you think that's the most important matchup in this series.
As Reuben said about those Dallas role players, he said that they're going to be a big part of them winning. I think that with the Celtics winning, you know, Kristaps coming back, who I said it before at times can be the second best player on that team, he's going to have such an important role with that pick and pop, and you know, he's a good defender in his own right to defend that paint, that lob that they love. To Lively and Gafford. And I think, you know, Derek White shooting and Drew Holiday being able to guard Kyrie Irving. We think he's having a down year in his defense, but if you look at the stats, he's not having that bad of a year. He's got all defense second team this year, and with pretty much the same stats as last year when he got the first team. So I think that limiting, you know, those other guys, being able to limit people like Kyrie, and I think it's just the defense on Kyrie is just going to be so good. I know how good Kyrie is, but I think Kyrie's really going to struggle. I think Kyrie's going to have a hard time, and I don't think he's going to struggle all series. I think he's going to struggle at the start, though, definitely, and that might just be enough.
Yeah.
Don't you think Porzingis will struggle at the start, though? Because I think he needs time to adjust?
I think he might do, but his role isn't as significant as he's not bringing up the ball handling. He's not like if Jason Tatum was out coming back in the side. He's got his role. He knows his role is to pick and pop, defend the paint, catch lobs. That's his role, or sit in the corner and get a three from a drive. That's his role. It's the same role as Tyson said, as what Al Horford had. It's not difficult to slot someone in like that. I think he might struggle, but I think he's gonna. The only thing I think he would struggle on is his actual shooting. I don't know how much he's been, you know, shooting in games. Obviously, he hasn't been shooting in games for the past month or whatever. But that's the only thing I think he's going to struggle with. But, you know, that comes naturally.
They live and die by the shooting, though. That's my problem.
I understand. But Kristaps is a good shooter. It's not something that you just lose. I mean, you might struggle for your first few shots, but it's not something that just goes away like that, you know?
No, but it takes a while for it to get up to the highest level of what he's capable of. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but
I think, look,
your
earlier,
replacement is Al Horford, who's good, but it's Al Horford. It's not like you're replacing him with Steph Curry.
no, but Horford's played really well. It hasn't been like it's a massive drop off.
I
He's
agree.
actually been able
I
to step
agree.
up to the role.
I think the height that Kristaps brings to defend that lob that we have seen countless times change games. We've had 6 lobs to Gafford and Lively in some games. They love it. They love that pick and roll. Either he steps back and shoots the 3 or goes to the rim and lobs it up. And I think that height in the paint against Gafford and Lively is just going to be too hard to pass up on if I'm Joe Mazzulla.
Look, I think it might be a really hot take, but I've done research and I'll discuss it later, but I don't think the Celtics are really set up well to defend the Mavericks. And I think Doncic will have a good time exploiting that Celtics
Go
defense.
for it now, Rubes. Don't talk about it later.
Well, I did some research. Like, the best way to defend Doncic is the blitz, and the Celtics don't like blitzing. So
Why is it the blitz?
Well, because the points per possession, Doncic scores 1.01 points per possession. Off the switch, he's 1.23 points, and the soft is 1.21 points. So there's obviously a discrepancy that he scores less when he's on the blitz, and the Celtics don't blitz. So I think the best way to defend Doncic is the blitz, but I'm not sure if they're going to adjust to it or not.
But
So they're going to have a hard time defending it.
Luka's just
The Celtics are going to switch everything. That's their whole. They have such a versatile defensive lineup.
Yeah, but I don't. But the best way to defend Doncic is the blitz, and they're not going to do the blitz. So Luka's going to have a good time exploiting that.
Reuben, Luka's just averaged 29, nearly a triple-double in the Western Conference Finals. I don't think there's much stopping him. I don't think that's the issue for the Celtics. I think, limit him as much as possible. But Luka's going to be Luka Doncic and get his stats. It's like defending Jokic. Jokic is going to get his stats. That's how that's how it's been. But I think it's the other things that are going to be in place. Limiting Kyrie, I think that's going to be a major point, and limiting the role players.
I don't think Kyrie's going to be limited. Like, he's had his
Drew
vendetta against the
Holiday on
Celtics in
him.
the past.
I know,
What?
but you can't just say that it's going to be. He's got a vendetta, so he's going to play well. There's nothing behind that. Yeah, it
Well,
was,
Luke,
Luka
so
I
eloquently
disagree.
put.
I think that Kyrie's going to be the most motivated he's ever been. He's come off the Western Conference Finals and he's had 3 30-point games.
Let's see how motivated he's going to be when Drew Holiday's got 3 steals on him.
Well, I think
Oscar.
it's a different challenge for Drew Holiday too. Who's Drew Holiday guarded these playoffs?
Drew Holiday's one of the best defenders.
Andrew
best perimeter.
put 30 on his head in back-to-back
He had a hard time
games.
against Butler last playoffs.
I know in the biggest moments Drew Holiday had a big steal, but Andrew Nembhard had 30 points in back-to-back games on Drew Holiday. He guarded Donovan Mitchell for 2 games. He didn't have to guard Jimmy. He guarded Tyler Hero. Like, Kyrie presents a different problem for Drew Holiday, and I think we've seen Kyrie play the best basketball he's ever played. We saw Kyrie with LeBron James. I know Luka's not LeBron, but we've seen Kyrie show up in the biggest moments that few people in NBA history have showed up. And I think Kyrie is playing at that level where he can show up again. I don't think we can just dismiss it, saying that we can just neutralize him. I think that's a ridiculous take.
I never said that. I never said that Kyrie is going to be neutralized. I just said Kyrie's going to struggle. He's going to struggle early, especially against someone like Drew Holiday. That's all I said.
Oh, okay,
is that a crazy take? Is that a crazy take?
Do we think that Drew Holiday is going to be guarding Kyrie? Is that a surefire matchup?
He's too short to guard Luka, so yeah.
Is that a surefire? Well, is that
Jaylen Brown guarded Luka earlier in the season. I think
Minnesota's going to have. Boston's going to have the same problem Minnesota has. Is they're going to struggle to find anyone to guard Luka, and they're going to have to keep switching who they guard.
I agree, but in the regular season, Jaylen Brown did it. And I know.
And how'd that work out?
I know, but you can say what you want. Luka's going to get his stats. I've already said that. But Jaylen Brown's going to be on Luka, I assume. He's 6'6". He's strong enough to guard someone like Luka, even though Luka's still going to get his chockies. So Drew Holiday is going to be on Kyrie just by process of elimination. They might try it, but I don't think he's tall enough. I think Luka's going to shoot over Drew Holiday. So Joe Mazzulla is going to put Jaylen Brown on him.
Listen, I want to hear what Tyson says, but before I go to you, Tyson, just the one thing that I do have a problem with you saying, Oscar, is the Mavericks have struggled in previous playoff series when Luka like you're saying, has gotten his chockies, okay, and he's gotten his. But the problem in previous playoff series is the others just don't come along for the ride. Now, Luka, in these playoff runs, has gotten his, but if it hasn't been Kyrie, it's been PJ Washington.
That's what I've been
It's been Derek
saying,
Jones
though.
Jr.
I'm not...
It's been, I think that I don't think
the
you're
first
giving up
words
credit
that-
to the Dallas role
The
players.
the first words that came out of my mouth is, I don't think it's going to be a star battle. I think it's going to be a role players battle. That's the first thing that came out of my mouth.
Yes.
I think it's going to be limiting those role players is going to be the thing that wins whoever the game. I never said it. You guys.
Yeah, and I agree, but I don't think I think Boston are going to have a hard time limiting them.
I think Boston are going to do a better job limiting Luka and Kyrie than Dallas are limiting JB and JT.
Timberwolves
See, I
have the
disagree.
best defense. And you
Tyson,
can't
what
say
do you
Kyrie will
think?
struggle.
No. Sorry, Reuben, and then we'll go to you, Tyson.
Well, yeah, go Reuben.
Well, I was just going to say that, like, Drew Holiday, I'm not saying he's a scrub or anything, but you can't say Kyrie's going to struggle. Like, last season, he was up against Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler was getting his numbers, and Luka put it so eloquently. But Luka put it so beautifully earlier that the role players have stepped up at the right time. The Timberwolves had the size. Gafford and Lively stepped up when they needed to. You needed threes against the Thunder. PJ Washington and Derek Jones stepped up in that series. So they step up in the right times. And we've seen historically that the Celtics haven't been able to do that. They were 2-1 up against the Warriors and then they choked it.
In what world have the Celtics not been able to, the role players been able to step up?
I'm talking about the Celtics as a team not being able to step up historically. They haven't won since 2008. The Mavericks have won 2011. And Jason Kidd was on that team as a player.
What are we talking about here? We're talking about stats from 10 years ago.
Completely different team to begin with.
Yeah, I know, but the Celtics have historically choked. They have. They were
They
2-1
have
up
18
against the Warriors.
championships, Reuben, if you want to bring it back there. But they've got 17, 18 championships.
But they
if you
haven't
want to
done
go
anything
back.
in 15 years, so that doesn't mean.
Let's steer back on track. Tyson, you're picking the Celtics here. What are your thoughts on what we just talked about with the matchups?
Well, Graham Mazzulla in what must have been a press, some sort of interview, something like that. He said, you can't essentially stop the Mavericks. The only thing you can do is slow them down from achieving their willpower. And I do think, like, from the last series with the Mavericks, Doncic really got his way, got his chockies by really exposing the pick and roll with Gobert. Bringing Gobert out, horrible perimeter defense. He looks absolutely lost, like a headless chicken out there. I just think Celtics have that ability to sort of slow it down. You know, Porzingis, I'd say, is a better perimeter defender. To try and stop that, slow it down, switches going around, and like with the two stars, I think both of them are going to excel well. I don't think anyone can really slow them down in particular. I do think it should come down to the role plays, and with PJ and Derek Jones Jr. They've shown glimpses where they've obviously stepped up major, but also glimpses where they've completely just shit the bed. But I do think, sorry for cussing, but the Celtics role players have stepped up. They've showed it. They live and die by the three. I think the three will decide all the games in particular. And yeah, I just think it comes down to the role players.
Yeah, well, listen, I do agree it comes down to the role players. And I want to transition. Well, not really transition. I want to talk about the pressure that's on the Boston Celtics. This is one of the we sort of talked about. Reuben sort of talked about it, but I do sort of agree with him. I don't. In the biggest moments, I trust the Mavericks more, but I want to transition more big picture into the Celtics potentially being one of the best, regular season teams, and also to never win a championship and their playoff shortcomings. Because if they don't win this title, okay, they will be one of the greatest teams in essence. They've gone to 6 conference finals in 8 years. Okay, out of all the other teams that have gone to 6 conference finals in 8 years, they've at least won 1 title. Okay, we're talking Kobe with Lakers, MJ's Bulls, Magic and Kareem, the Koozie Celtics, as Roska cared about that before with their titles in the 70s. We're talking about some of the cream of the crop teams in NBA history, and I don't think anyone views the Boston Celtics for how much success they've had with those teams. So do you guys think that there's pressure from that perspective for them to win? Because personally, I do. And I think that when you look at Boston's shortcomings in the past, it's the bigger the moment has gotten, the smaller they have become. And I don't know how that's going to change necessarily in these final series, but when you look at the Dallas Mavericks plays, it starts with Kyrie, who has one of the biggest moments in the NBA Finals history. The role players who have proved themselves so far, PJ Washington's a 50% clutch three-point shooter in these playoffs, okay? Last 5 minutes of the games, within 5 points. For comparison, Tatum is shooting 17% from clutch in the three-pointers in these playoffs. Do you think the pressure at all is going to get to them?
Oh,
You mean
you go.
sorry,
No,
Tyson, you go.
No, you go, Rich, you go.
Okay. I think historically it has gotten to them, and I think again it will, because let's just talk about Jason Tatum right in the regular season. I remember in the middle of the season that people started to tout him as a potential MVP candidate because of how outstanding he was in the record for the Celtics. The reason he didn't get it was because when he really needed to step up against the Denver Nuggets and show that he can beat the defending champions, he wasn't able to do it, and Denver, as a result, were 2-0 against the Celtics. So when it comes down to it, the biggest moments, like that moment there, Tatum didn't step up. And I think it will show again that the Celtics won't be able to step up. So there's a lot of pressure on Tatum especially to perform.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely pressure, like especially when you're playing for the Celtics franchise. Like they're known for their long-term success, and they've always been a great team. But I think just the fact that Tatum and Brown have had a taste of what the finals are like. I think they're just more eager than ever to go and show and prove them wrong. Like they've got a stacked roster. I think this year's the year. It's their time. Like even when Jason Tatum wasn't performing to his best ability in the clutch, you still got Jaylen Brown stepping up for him. So I think both stars are going to be more keen than ever to get it done.
Oscar, before you go, I do want to just throw in, with the pressure, this is also the Celtics year when you think about it. And this is why I think the pressure is even more, because they're not facing a Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. They're not facing a Jokic and a Denver. They're facing a team that has gone on a hot streak in the last 4 months of the season, while Boston has been by far the best team all season by a landslide. So I think I take that into consideration as well. Oscar, you got a lot to say. Go for it.
Well, obviously there's pressure. I mean, it's the goddamn NBA Finals. I mean, there's always going to be pressure in this type of series. And I know what you're alluding to, Luka. You're saying that because of the moment and because of what type of moment it is there going to be more pressure? And probably, but you know, these are goddamn professional athletes. You know, they've, and I know what Reuben was saying about, you know, Jason Tatum dropping the ball earlier this season for the MVP or whatever he's talking about. But this is the NBA Finals. They've been here before. They've lost here before. They have an NBA champ on their team now. And I think it's a different team to the one that lost. It's a better team to the one that lost. And I think they're going to take it and win it. I think obviously there's pressure. It's the NBA Finals. You know, pressure makes diamonds, and I think the Celtics team.
So Oscar, my next question is: what do you think has changed with the Celtics team this time compared to the last time they were in the finals? Is it the team themselves? Is it the opponents? What do you think?
Well, I think if you look at the core of the team being, you know, the two stars, they've both gotten better, as we know. They've both gotten better, and I think they've. You know, Jason Tatum's been in MVP talks, and Jaylen Brown, especially in this playoffs, has been really, really good out there. I think Drew Holiday, adding someone like that, a defensive leader, a guy that's been there before, has won there before, in this moment before, and then adding Kristaps Porzingis is massive. So yeah, it's a team thing. I think the team's changed. The dynamic of the team hasn't really changed because I think their additions were pretty good and seamless. They've got 67 wins, but I think that there has been things that have changed, but I think it's made them better as a team, and they're going to take it out. I mean, it's the NBA Finals. There's pressure. There's pressure on everyone. There's pressure on Luka to win it. There's pressure on Kyrie to win it as well. There's, you know, and you might say, oh, there's not as much pressure. I can understand where you're coming from, but there's still, it's the NBA Finals. If they lose, they're going to be gutted. Anyone's going to be gutted if they lose.
I just think is when you look at the way they've dealt with pressure, though, I think why I make the points that I'm making. I think when you look at the way they've dealt with pressure, I think that's the difference. Boston hasn't really shown the ability to deal with pressure in the past. And I think Dallas is a team. I was impressed with their ability with Indiana, but I don't think Boston for 1 second in the entire series thought, no, we are like actually maybe going to lose this game. I think Boston were in complete control the entire Eastern Conference Finals against Indiana, the entire playoffs. And I don't think they're going to be in complete control this series. And we saw what happens in the past when they're not in complete control. They explode, they come undone. And we've seen that in the past. Whereas the Mavericks have shown the ability to not always be in complete control and to put themselves and to take games from other teams. I think that's a big problem for Boston when you look at this matchup.
But it's a different team. I know what you're alluding to and what specific teams you're alluding to, but you've got guys on your team now, such as Drew Holiday, especially Drew Holiday, that can...
Why is Drew Holiday there? How did Drew Holiday look the last time he was in the playoffs? Because if he looked like a Michael Jordan, he'd still be on the Milwaukee Bucks right now. There's a reason that he is on the Boston Celtics. There's a reason that Porzingis got let go by Dallas. There's a reason why Dallas let go of Porzingis, because he did absolutely nothing when they versed the Clippers in the first round 3 years ago and was a shell of himself and got shipped to Washington. Like, there's a reason that they are on the teams they're there. I agree they had their moments in the past, but they haven't always shown up big in the playoffs either.
What's the reason Drew's on the Celtics then?
Because he didn't perform well enough in the Miami series, and Milwaukee felt they needed more firepower on offense. And Drew Holiday wasn't giving them.
But you can say that from the Celtics perspective as well. Why did we pick up Drew Holiday? Oh, because he's a brilliant defender and he's going to be seamless into this team. He's going to make this team a 67-win team and take us to the finals. Help us get to the finals. You can say that from both sides. You can say, oh yeah, we dropped him to get Damian Lillard, but then look what on the Celtics side, they're doing pretty well. They're in the NBA Finals.
I do agree, but I'm just saying.
So you're saying but what you're saying is, oh yeah, we dropped all these guys. They dropped all the guys because they're bad. They played bad. Yeah, but they went to the Celtics and they played so well. They've done so much for this team. And the reason I'm talking about Drew Holiday so much is because he's a good leader. He's a good defensive leader for this team. He's played pretty well. He's defended pretty well this season. He's in the second team. And also, he's been brilliant for the Celtics team. You can say whatever you want about, oh yeah, the Bucks dropped him, whatever, but they've just paid him, on a 4-more-year deal.
I love me some. Listen, I love Drew Holiday. Okay,
why did they pay him for 4 more years if they don't?
That's a great question. I actually don't know why they paid him. I think that's a really bad contract.
Well, yeah, me too. But
that's a completely different story. I just think that
they see something.
I don't think when Tatum and Brown, or even one of them, when they struggled in the last NBA Finals, okay, Boston didn't have that guy who could give, that's why they traded away all their role players, because Tatum and Brown became small, and Al Horford couldn't do it, Marcus Smart couldn't do it. I'm trying to even think, no one else could do it. I don't think Drew Holiday is necessarily the type of guy that's going to say, don't worry, JB and JT, I'm going to do it. Because he couldn't do that when Giannis wasn't there, okay? Drew Holiday, as much as I love him, okay, this might be, I don't think this is harsh. I think Drew Holiday is a front runner. Okay, I think Drew Holiday is a front runner when you look at the teams that he's been on. And he can play really well when the rest of the team is playing well and the other star players are doing good. But when times get tough, I don't trust Drew Holiday. I don't trust Derek White. I certainly don't trust Porzingis, okay? But who do I trust when times get tough? I trust Kyrie Irving, I trust Luka Doncic, and I trust Jason Kidd, which is what I want to get into next.
Okay, Luka, you just compared Luka and Kyrie to Drew Holiday and Porzingis. What are you talking about? What do you mean?
What am I talking about?
You've just said, I don't trust Drew Holiday and I don't trust...
Fine, I trust
PJ
Washington.
Who can step up in the clutch.
I trust PJ Washington.
I understand
I trust
that.
Eric Jones Jr. I trust all them just as much. I'm saying...
So we're not talking about Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum anymore. Do you not trust either of them?
But
on the clutch.
I do trust them to an extent. But I don't think the Celtics are
talking
going to
about
cruise through this series, which is
No
what I'm
one's
saying.
saying. We've all said it's going to be in 6. That's
Exactly,
not cruising.
but when they don't cruise through series, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown do not play well, and they've fallen into the trap where they haven't had the next person to step up and take up the slack. That's the problem I have with this Celtics team. They don't have that next person. Where I've seen Dallas, game after game after game, they've got the next person to step up every time. And
Can I just say...
Yes.
Sorry, just quickly, right? PJ Washington, just as an example, right? He could be shooting terrible from 3, but then
He
when
shot
the last
25%
3 minutes of the
conference
fourth quarter...
finals.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So he can shoot bad all game, but then the last 3 minutes, he always makes a corner 3. It's about those minor details in the last 3 minutes of the game, and I trust Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic more than the entire Boston Celtics team. And that's what it comes down to. The Celtics better not hope that it's close, otherwise they're screwed. Kyrie Irving has a good record in closeout games for a reason. Like, even Gafford, I think it was game 3, making all those defensive plays in the fourth quarter. I know the Mavericks won by 9, but that was because of Gafford and all those minute details and plays he made in the fourth quarter, the and one and the rejection. I think it was against Cat.
Yeah.
Well, in their last 2
It
head-to-head
was.
matchups, they're 4 from
Back-to-back
16 in the
rejections.
corner. So we'll just put it out there. Little stat for you.
Sure, but they also lead the NBA in
Stat for
3-pointers from the corner this season too.
The difficulty is, and this is why it was hard for me to pick the Celtics, because it was. I didn't send my prediction to Luka till late yesterday afternoon.
Yeah.
It was a tough decision to pick the Celtics, but at the end of the day, and this is why it was hard. It was because you can say all these things about Dallas because of the opponents they've versed. They versed the Thunder, they versed Minnesota, they versed really good teams. Coming into this podcast to argue about the Celtics is really difficult because of the opponents they've faced. So you can say whatever you want about the Mavericks because they've done all these things, they've beat the best teams, and the Celtics have cruised, as we've all been saying, cruised to the NBA Finals. But at the end of the day, the Celtics are a better team. I think a better team on paper. I think the Mavericks are going to struggle to change their defense to defending the 3-point. And it's hard to say much other than that without you two going, well, who did they verse? Who did they verse? They were versing Indiana. They were versing Indiana.
I don't have a. I am.
They were versing the Heat now.
A lot of my points haven't been about that. My points have been more so about the team that the Boston Celtics have and what they've done in the biggest moments versus what the Dallas have done in the biggest moments. It's not about it's about who they've versed, but it's also about the teams themselves and the individual players that are going head to head.
Yeah, but you before you just said you were like the Pacers. They always looked in control even when they weren't. And
the last time we saw the Celtics, the last time the Celtics did not look in control, what happened? They got their asses sent home.
I don't think they looked in control against that Pacers. They had to yak up a 3 with Jaylen Brown in the corner. I don't think they looked in control at all. The one that went to overtime. I don't think they looked in control in that game. I think they were shivering and shaking to get a 3 off, and Pascal forgot to foul.
Well, look, Boston tracked them down game after game after game after game, okay? And the game 1 was close, but I still stand by what I said. I don't think just because the game was close, I still think 2 things can be true. I think there can be a close game, but Boston can still be in control, which they were.
But the one that went to overtime, you cannot tell me they were in control. They had 2 seconds to get the 3-point off, and they passed it to JB in the corner to yak up the 3.
It was the easiest play I've ever seen. They made 1 pass. They just said, "Okay, there you go."
Yeah, how is that the easiest play when you've got Pascal Siakam in the clutch running at you? How is that an easy play? And you're
What are you talking about? Siakam defending Brown?
Yeah. With 2 seconds left, there's not an easy play with 2
Siakam
seconds left.
didn't even contest the shot. He was wide open. He raised up, and Siakam was like, "Uh-oh, I should have fouled," and then he scored.
But he was still running at him. It was still contested. Yeah, it might have been more open than it should have been. But you still got to hit that shot with 2 seconds left. And you still got to hit that shot with 2 seconds left.
Yeah, but they're professional athletes,
Oh,
Oscar,
my
like you said before.
But now I was talking
like-
about their mentality. I'm not talking about.
What? I'm
We're
just
talking
saying
about Pacers team who are terrible defensively.
This is
as
what
well,
I'm
by the
saying,
way.
Luca. This is what I'm saying. What did I just say? What did I just say? I can't talk
No,
about
but-
anything that the Celtics did well because you two are going to be like, well, it's the
I didn't
Pacers.
bring you brought up the Pacers.
That was
just
no,
then.
but that's what I was saying just before. That's what I was saying. Oh, but their opponents at their best. I can't say anything. I can't say anything.
I don't want to bring up who they've placed though. I want to talk about how well Dallas have done against the Timberwolves team that defeated the defending champions, beat a number one
You
seed,
just
and then
did.
beat the Clippers, who have 4 future Hall of Famers.
I think it's pretty admirable that the Celtics cruise to the finals as well. I think that's pretty admirable in the playoffs to cruise to an NBA finals. You know, you can talk, but you can talk about you can talk about. Oh yeah, they beat these guys, they beat these guys, they beat great teams. Yes, I understand how good that is, but Reuben, cruising to an NBA finals isn't easy either. I know
Okay.
I know
But
that.
even if I agreed with it, in the biggest moments, the Celtics have not shown any evidence that they can step up to the plate, and that's why I've got Dallas.
Twice in the
Boston are a
last
good
series.
team. Oscar, they've been in 6 out of 8 conference finals, and they've not won a title.
It's a different team.
Dallas have
It's a
won a
better
title
team.
more recently than Boston.
It's a better team, but we're not talking about 2011. We're talking about 2024. We're not talking about these older games, 2008, 2011, where they had Kevin Garnett, one of the best power forwards, and they had Dirk Nowitzki, one of the best power forwards of all time. We're talking about today, where these teams are going to go head to head, and the Celtics are a better team.
You can't talk about that. You can't say that when Kristaps Porzingis has been out for a considerable amount of time and he'll need time to adjust in the starting lineup.
You can't
He's
say
one of the main
that a
pieces.
championship
He's part
in
of the new
2000
team.
You can't say that a championship in 2011 puts more pressure on the Boston Celtics because they won 3 years prior.
I'm just saying the Celtics haven't done anything.
But it doesn't put more pressure on this team to win because it was 3 years. And they had the best power forward of all time on the team. The second best. Tim Duncan's the best.
People forget that Heat was a super team with the big 3. Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James.
Oh my God. Luca, get a hold of this man, please. We're not talking about 2011. I don't think the 2011 championship affects this championship at all. It puts no more pressure. It puts no more pressure on anyone. I don't think they're even thinking about that. They're not looking at, yeah, we're going to be like these guys when they're walking down the tunnel.
Does the one head-to-head matchup post-trade make any significance to you guys or not?
Yeah.
No, because Minnesota were 3-1, and Dallas beat them in 5. So no, not really. Matchups were big impacts for my decision.
I think it has some significance.
In the Thunder series, like
I give it a bit more significance than that, but I looked at that game and Boston also were crazy hot.
they
from
were,
three.
yeah.
And Boston are gonna get crazy hot
That's
from
what
3
they
in this
do.
series. They're gonna have. That's what I mean. I think Boston are gonna flex their muscles early. I have them winning game 1. We all do. Reuben doesn't. I think Boston are gonna flex their muscles early. Okay, but this is just what I keep reiterating is I just don't believe that the further the series goes on, I think it's less likely that Boston continues that hot 3-point shooting. And that's why that game was great. I think Jason Tatum, both him and JB scored 30 plus. I think Tatum might have had like 35 or one or the other. But also, and then that was, I think it was at Boston. It was at Boston and it was about a month after the trade was finished. So I give it some significance, but I think Reuben is also right. We also saw, Phoenix with 3-0 against Minnesota, and Minnesota absolutely, like what Reuben sort of said. I think it has some significance, but I think we do know the Celtics can get hot. It's just whether they can stay hot for a whole series against a very good team who I believe can also match them tit for tat scoring when you look at the players that they have.
But the Mavericks defense, as I said before, are centered around essentially a zone, trying to make them shoot. That's what the Mavericks defense has essentially been about this playoffs. And you do not want to make this Celtics team shoot.
Well, I think I disagree with that because the Thunder's still been able to make the necessary adjustments against all the teams. They've been able to exploit the team's weaknesses. Like you look at the Timberwolves, they exploit their size.
No, but if you look at what the Mavericks have been doing in this playoffs against both of those teams was play back, make them shoot, try and get them to. And if they do isolate and go to the rim, it's collapsing. They had one of the best one of the best go to the rim guys in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Obviously, he's going to get his chockies, but that essentially was their defense: is let them shoot. Make them, if they do drive, collapse the whole defense on them. That's what they were doing to Anthony Edwards. That's why his scoring went down. And then when Anthony Edwards opened up and hit threes, they started to get some, fire back into them. That's why Anthony Edwards, that's when they were, 20 points or 30 points down in that last game, Anthony Edwards hit like 4 threes in a row because essentially their defense is about making them shoot. And
the Timberwolves are a different team to the Celtics, though.
No, but exactly. I think if the Mavericks go ahead with that in their mind, and you let the Celtics shoot, it's going to be a rough day at the office.
But they're not going.
I know they're not going to. I know
Jason Kidd is a defensive brilliant.
Gosh, I'm not saying that they're going to do that. I'm just saying.
That's what it sounds like.
No,
you're saying if they do.
I'm just saying all playoffs.
Obviously not going to do it.
All playoffs. That's what they've done. That has been their default. Is going to that type of defense. But if you even look at doing that, it's going to be rough.
But they're not going to do that.
I know, but you've done a whole playoffs. You've done a whole playoffs doing that defense. You've done a whole entire playoffs doing that exact defense on every single team you've versed.
I think Jason Kidd's a better coach than Joe Mazzulla, and I think he'll be able to make adjustments better than the Celtics.
I'm not saying he's not going to adjust it. I'm just saying if that's been your default, they're going to struggle.
It's not going to be the default.
That has been their default. I'm talking about history. I can't look into the future and see what they're going to do. I'm looking at the history here.
But Dallas have the personnel that can force the Celtics to take tough shots in general. Like, they have very good defensive players. Like, they're very versatile. They're long, okay? They hustle hard. Like, we've seen Kyrie, when he was playing on... Like, you look at Paul George, for example, and Harden, he was getting right up in their grill. Okay, he wasn't just sitting back and saying, okay, Harden, I'm going to let you take step-back three-pointers. He was getting right up in Harden's grill. Okay, so I think that they will adjust defensively, and I think that they can adjust defensively.
Yeah, I agree that they probably can. I agree that they probably can. I'm just saying, in the past, that's what we've seen. And if they do that, it's wraps. If they play...
they can't let the Celtics shoot well from three. They have the second highest three-point percentage. They live and die by three, as Luka said earlier in the show. So they can't let that happen.
We are going to wrap up soon. I just want to get a show of hands. I'll ask the Celtics people. We saw Jaylen Brown, win the Eastern Conference Finals MVP trophy. If the Celtics do go on to win this championship, do you think we'll see Jaylen Brown win Finals MVP, or do you think Tatum or someone else will win Finals MVP?
No, I'm going with Tatum. I still think, obviously he's put up good numbers, but since he's the superstar player he is, we hold him to such a high standard, and I think he's since the past experience with the finals, on conference finals, I think he just got more than enough motivation from now to just really take over. He'll send Kobe that text saying, I got you again, once more. And I do think that Tatum is just going to show why he's that superstar player now. We hold him to that degree.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think Jason Tatum was probably a pretty good sniff for the Western Conference MVP, the Eastern Conference MVP.
Yeah, it was one vote between them.
Yeah, I think that he probably should have won it. Looking at the stats.
I think that's
Jason Tatum,
why he did, because we hold him to such a high degree.
I think that Tatum's really going to try and flex his muscles, and I hope he plays well. I know there's a lot of Jason fans, and I know there's a lot of Jason haters out there, but I always want to see the best players play well.
Reuben, are you confident in Doncic winning Finals MVP?
Yeah. Doncic is winning, but if Boston do win, Tatum's too inconsistent, so it's hard for to definitively say that he'll win it. But if I had to sway one side, it would probably just be Tatum. Just because he's meant to be the main guy of the Celtics, and he'll win it if the Celtics win.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. Oscar, I think you're right in what you said. I think if the finals, or the Eastern Conference Finals MVP were purely on stats, Tatum had a much better statistical series than Jaylen Brown. But Jason Tatum really only had like one, it was game 3, I'm pretty sure. It was one, like it was his best game.
I mean, there wasn't
he
much
had
of a
one
sample
really
size.
good game. And there wasn't much of a sample size, I agree. But I think Jaylen Brown also had the bigger moments in the series. And I
That's why
think he
he
was
won it,
more
yeah.
consistent. Yeah, exactly. So I agree with Reuben. I don't think it's as... I don't think you can definitively say Tatum, but I think in the finals MVP, I think it normally sort of just goes, if it's close, then it's normally your number one guy who wins it. And I think Tatum is their number one guy. So I think if they do win the championship, he'll get finals MVP. I don't have any worries about Doncic winning finals MVP. Kyrie, yeah, I mean, we had the same similar scenario. But we will end there. As we do finish, any final thoughts before we end? We'll hopefully have another episode before game 3, which in that case, Dallas will be looking to take a 2-1 lead. But before we do that episode, any final thoughts, guys? Rubes, I'll start
Sorry,
with
you know what to do.
Yeah, Kyrie watching. Hello, Kyrie. Thanks for watching.
You got it,
Yeah, you got
Kyrie.
it, Kyrie.
Hey, Jason,
Yeah,
you know what
Jason,
to do.
you know what to do, buddy. Good steps. You pretend
Yeah,
like it's
well,
nothing.
on a good note, I
Look at
think
that 2011 championship, Kyrie.
signifying
Look at that thing. Look at that thing.
there will be one of these young stars will have a first championship on their resume, and I think that's a good thing for the NBA. Whether that's Doncic, whether that's Tatum and Brown, and Kyrie, obviously he'll have his second one. But
Kyrie's
I think
young?
that's just a good No, but I'm just saying in general. I think it's a good thing for the NBA that one of these, emerging, I think Tatum and Doncic are both superstars, but will take that next step into winning a championship.
Yeah, and I
so
think...
I'm excited for whichever player that is. I think it'll be Doncic, but we'll see how it goes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for tuning in to Priceless Takes, episode 60. NBA Finals Preview 2023-2024. We have, if on the top of your screen, top of my screen at least, Reuben and myself are both taking Dallas in 6. Oscar and Tyson down the bottom are taking the Celtics in 6. No game 7s here. We'll maybe finish on this. Actually, I do want to talk about this, and then we'll go. On a scale of 1 to 10, Oscar, I'm going to ask you first. How likely do you think a Game 7 is in this series? We haven't picked it, but can you see a scenario where there's a Game 7?
I could see a Game 7. The NBA fan in me wants there to be a Game 7. I mean, NBA Finals Game 7 is always sick. It's sick to watch and to see who can come out on top. So I'm going to say a 7 out of 10.
Oops.
Yeah, I agree with Oscar. 7 out of 10. I was like, with hearing the news about Porzingis, I was actually really close to say Mavericks in 7, but I think Dallas will get it done at their ground, which is why I ended up picking them. But yeah, 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll be around the same 6-7. I mean, obviously, it's shown that the two best teams are in the finals, so they've both got the ability to finish it when it's need to be done, but also to push it to a Game 7 if required. So there's definitely a possibility, but I think the expertise, they'll keep it within 6.
Yeah, I think it'll stay 6. If I had have thought 7. I just think, I don't know, I'm just, maybe this is a bad view to have, and I have been caught out on it in the past, but when making my predictions, I'm just very pessimistic about road teams going in and winning Game 7, but we have seen multiple times in this playoffs, whether it be the Timberwolves in Denver,
I think
the Pacers
that's probably a
in New
general
York.
consensus, though, that going into the Game 7 that your road is a bit
but
rough.
I'm saying for me personally, because we picked Dallas, right?
Oh,
So
okay,
I'm saying,
yeah.
if for you two, if I was predicting the Celtics, I would potentially be like, oh yeah, Game 7 on your home floor. You know, I would predict. Whereas for us picking Dallas, I feel like if Dallas are going to do it, I think they're going to do it in 6. I don't think they're going to do it in 7 if they're going to do it, but they very well could. And honestly, a Game 7, I would. Mate, well, we could talk about this next time, but in a Game 7 scenario, I certainly know who I'm taking. But we will talk about that if it gets to a Game 7. That's a whole nother debate to have. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Priceless Takes, episode 60. To my panelists, hopefully we will continue to maintain a full panel throughout these finals. But But for this episode, thank you all for joining me today.
Thanks, Luka.
Thank you.
Make sure to follow us on our social media. We're on Instagram and on TikTok under the handle Priceless Takes. Links will be posted in the description. Make sure to tell us who you think's going to win the NBA Finals. We want to hear your thoughts too. See if you agree with certain members of the panel. Predictions will be out tonight on our social media with a game-by-game breakdown. But considering we have a split panel, we have a lot of games going the same way. So it'll be interesting to see which games are the swing games and how it goes. But the NBA Finals for us, it's 2 days away. The 7th of June in Australia, the 6th of June in America, Thursday night for them, Friday lunchtime for us. We will see you next time. Thank you for watching Priceless Takes. I'm your host, Luka Price.